Hannibal Barca was born in 247 BC in Carthage, a powerful city-state located in present-day Tunisia. He was the son of Hamilcar Barca, a prominent general who fought in the First Punic War against Rome. From a young age, Hannibal was immersed in the military culture of his family, and his father instilled in him a deep-seated animosity toward Rome. Legend has it that when Hannibal was only 9 years old, Hamilcar took him to the altar of Baal and made him swear an oath of eternal enmity against the Romans. This oath would shape Hannibal's life and ambitions, setting the stage for one of the most remarkable military careers in history. As Hannibal grew, he honed his skills as a commander, learning the intricacies of warfare from his father and later from his brother-in-law Hasdrubal, who continued the fight against the Romans in Spain after Hamilcar's death. Hannibal's formative years were spent in the Iberian Peninsula, where he developed a profound understanding of the terrain, the peoples, and the strategies that would later serve him well in his campaigns against Rome. By the time he assumed command of the Carthaginian forces in Spain after Hasdrubal's assassination in 221 BC, Hannibal was already a seasoned commander, ready to put his strategies to the test. Hannibal's military genius was evident from the outset of his leadership. He recognized that the key to defeating Rome lay not just in direct confrontation, but in outmaneuvering and outsmarting his opponents. His first major military action was the siege of Saguntum in 219 BC, a city allied with Rome. The siege was a bold move, as it directly provoked Rome and marked the beginning of the Second Punic War. Hannibal's forces besieged the city for 8 months before finally breaching its walls. The fall of Saguntum was not just a tactical victory, it was a statement of intent, signaling to Rome that Hannibal was a serious threat. In 218 BC, Hannibal embarked on his most audacious campaign, the crossing of the Alps. This maneuver has become legendary for its boldness and complexity. With an army that included war elephants, Hannibal sought to surprise the Romans by entering Italy from the north, a route they would not expect. The journey was fraught with peril. The harsh winter conditions, treacherous mountain passes, and hostile tribes posed significant challenges. Yet Hannibal's leadership and the loyalty of his troops saw them through. He lost a significant portion of his forces during the crossing, but the element of surprise was achieved. When he finally descended into the Po Valley, he was met with awe and fear. Hannibal's first major engagement in Italy came at the Battle of the Trebia in December 218 BC. Here he faced the Roman army, led by consul Tiberius Sempronius Longus. Hannibal's strategy was a masterclass in deception and ambush. He positioned his troops strategically along the river, using the terrain to his advantage. When the Romans attacked, Hannibal unleashed his cavalry and hidden infantry, enveloping the Roman forces. The result was a decisive victory for Hannibal, who inflicted heavy casualties on the Romans and demonstrated his ability to outthink and outmaneuver a larger force. The following year, Hannibal achieved one of his most famous victories at the Battle of Lake Trasimene. In June 217 BC, he lured the Roman army, led by consul Gaius Flaminius, into a trap. By positioning his forces in the hills surrounding the lake, he was able to ambush the Romans as they marched into the valley. The battle was chaotic and brutal, with the Romans caught completely off guard. The result was another catastrophic defeat for Rome, and Hannibal's reputation as a military genius grew. The Romans were now in a state of panic, and the Senate began to realize that Hannibal was not just another general. He was a formidable adversary capable of changing the course of the war. Hannibal's most significant victory, however, came at the Battle of Cannae in 216 BC. This battle is often cited as one of the greatest tactical feats in military history. Hannibal faced a Roman army that was nearly double the size of his own, led by 2 consuls, Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro. Understanding that a frontal assault would lead to defeat, Hannibal devised a brilliant double envelopment strategy. He positioned his troops in a crescent shape, allowing the Romans to advance into the center. As the Romans pressed forward, Hannibal's forces closed in from all sides, encircling them completely. The carnage was devastating. Estimates suggest that as many as 50,000 to 70,000 Roman soldiers were killed in a single day. The psychological impact of Cannae was profound. it shattered Roman confidence and led to a crisis in leadership. Hannibal's victory at Cannae was not just a military triumph, it was a turning point in the war. For a brief moment, it seemed that Hannibal might achieve his goal of defeating Rome. However, despite the victory, Hannibal faced challenges in capitalizing on his success. He lacked the reinforcements necessary to lay siege to Rome itself, and the Roman Senate, though shaken, was far from defeated. In the aftermath of Cannae, Hannibal attempted to forge alliances with other states in Italy, hoping to turn the tide of the war in his favor. He marched through southern Italy, gaining support from various cities and tribes. However, many were hesitant to commit fully to his cause, fearing Roman retribution. The Romans, under the leadership of General Quintus Fabius Maximus, adopted a strategy of attrition, avoiding direct confrontation with Hannibal, and instead harassing his supply lines. This approach, known as the Fabian strategy, was controversial but ultimately effective in stalling Hannibal's momentum. As the war dragged on, Hannibal's position became increasingly precarious. He faced supply shortages and the challenge of maintaining loyalty among his diverse troops. The Romans, learning from their previous mistakes, began to adapt their tactics and improve their military organization. The tide of the war began to shift, and Hannibal's earlier successes started to fade into memory. In 203 BC, the war took a critical turn. The Romans launched a counteroffensive in North Africa, led by General Scipio Africanus. Scipio, a brilliant strategist in his own right, recognized that the key to defeating Hannibal lay in taking the fight to Carthage. He invaded North Africa, forcing Hannibal to return to defend his homeland. The two generals met at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC. In this decisive confrontation, Scipio employed tactics that neutralized Hannibal's strengths, particularly his war elephants. The battle ended in a resounding victory for Scipio and marked the end of the Second Punic War. Hannibal's defeat at Zama was a bitter blow, not only for him personally, but for Carthage as a whole. The terms of the peace treaty imposed by Rome were harsh. Carthage lost its empire, was forced to pay a massive indemnity, and was prohibited from waging war without Roman consent. Hannibal, once the scourge of Rome, found himself in a position of disgrace. He continued to serve Carthage in various political roles, advocating for reforms and seeking to rebuild the city's fortunes. However, his military career was effectively over. In the years that followed, Hannibal faced increasing political opposition within Carthage. His enemies, fearful of his influence and popularity, accused him of treason and sought to undermine his position. To escape the political turmoil, Hannibal fled into exile, seeking refuge in the courts of various Hellenistic kingdoms. He eventually found a place in the service of King Prusius I of Bithynia, where he continued to strategize and advise on military matters. Hannibal's legacy as a military leader is profound. His tactics and strategies have been studied and emulated by military leaders throughout history. The concept of using deception, the terrain, and the element of surprise are hallmarks of his approach to warfare. His ability to adapt to changing circumstances and to inspire loyalty among his troops remains a testament to his leadership skills. Hannibal's campaigns not only altered the course of the Second Punic War, but also reshaped the landscape of Mediterranean politics for generations. In the end, Hannibal's life was marked by both triumph and tragedy. He was a man of extraordinary talents and ambitions, whose dreams of defeating Rome were ultimately thwarted. Yet his impact on history is undeniable. He remains a symbol of resistance against overwhelming odds, a figure whose strategies continue to resonate in military theory and practice. Even centuries after his death, Hannibal Barca stands as a towering figure in the annals of military history, a testament to the enduring power of leadership, strategy, and the relentless pursuit of one's goals.